Sometimes the most powerful moments in professional wrestling happen when the cameras stop rolling and the lights go down. On June 1st, 2026, after Monday Night Raw went off the air following CM Punk's incredible World Heavyweight Championship defense against Braun Breaker, something extraordinary happened. What transpired between CM Punk and Paul Heyman during those unseen moments would become the stuff of legend, talked about for years by the fans lucky enough to be in attendance. This wasn't scripted television. This was raw emotion, real history, and the kind of moment that reminds everyone why professional wrestling is unlike anything else in entertainment. The context of this encounter makes it even more significant when you understand the complicated history between these two men. CM Punk and Paul Heyman's relationship stretches back over a decade, filled with incredible highs and devastating lows. Their partnership during Punk's legendary 434-day WWE Championship reign from 2011 to 2013 produced some of the most memorable television in WWE history. Heyman's advocacy elevated Punk's championship run to legendary status, and together they created magic that resonated with fans worldwide. The promos, the mind games, the storytelling, all of it was peak professional wrestling. But that partnership ended badly, as so many things in wrestling do. The circumstances of their split were messy and public, filled with accusations and hurt feelings that played out both on television and in real life. When Punk left WWE in 2014, the bridge between him and Heyman seemed permanently burned. Even after Punk's return to WWE in 2023, the two men had barely acknowledged each other's existence. They appeared on the same shows occasionally, but never interacted, never shared a segment, never even made eye contact that cameras caught. The tension was palpable, and fans wondered if they would ever reconcile. Paul Heyman's current situation made this potential encounter even more complicated. After his painful split from Roman Reigns back in July 2025, Heyman had aligned himself with Braun Breaker, becoming the wise man to a new generation of destroyer. Heyman had been instrumental in Breaker's rise, using his legendary mic skills to build his new client into a legitimate main event threat. The championship match earlier that night between Punk and Breaker had Heyman's fingerprints all over it, even though he had been banned from ringside. Everyone knew Heyman had been in Breaker's ear all week, strategizing and preparing for the biggest match of the young superstar's career. When the match ended with CM Punk retaining his championship after 38 minutes of warfare, the live broadcast showed the champion celebrating in the ring, the crowd giving both competitors a standing ovation, and the mutual respect between Punk and Breaker. The cameras captured Punk raising Breaker's hand, acknowledging the incredible effort, and then the show went to its final commercial break. When Raw returned for its closing moments, they showed highlights from throughout the night and promoted next week's show. Then the broadcast ended at exactly 11:08 p.m. Eastern Time, as it always does. But the fans in the arena knew something special was about to happen. They always know. There's an energy that fills the building when the cameras stop rolling, but the wrestlers remain in the ring. The house lights hadn't come up yet. CM Punk was still in the ring, sitting in the corner, the World Heavyweight Championship draped across his lap. He was exhausted, sweat pouring down his face, his body aching from the war he had just survived. Braun Breaker had already left, helped to the back by trainers, and the ring was empty except for the champion. Punk slowly pulled himself to his feet using the ropes, clutching his ribs, which had taken tremendous punishment during the match. He picked up the championship, held it close for a moment, and then raised it high one more time for the fans who had stayed to see what would happen next. The crowd, still on their feet, chanted CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, showing their appreciation for the champion's performance. Punk acknowledged them with a nod, that slight smile on his face that showed he was genuinely moved by their support. Then something unexpected happened. Paul Heyman's music hit. The arena, which had been winding down from the emotional high of the match, suddenly exploded with a mixture of surprise and anticipation. Heyman walked out onto the stage alone, no Braun Breaker with him this time, no security, no backup. He was dressed in his typical suit, but something about his demeanor was different. Less confident. More vulnerable. He held a microphone loosely in one hand, and even from a distance, you could see the emotion on his face. CM Punk's expression changed immediately. The smile disappeared, replaced by something harder, more guarded. He watched Heyman carefully as the special counsel began walking down the ramp. The crowd didn't know how to react. Some were booing Heyman for his role in preparing Breakker to challenge their champion. Others were intrigued by what was about to unfold. Everyone sensed this was going to be significant. Heyman reached the ring but didn't immediately enter. He stood at the bottom of the ramp, looking up at Punk, clearly gathering his thoughts. Finally, Heyman climbed the steel steps slowly, his age showing in a way it rarely does. He stepped through the ropes and stood in the ring, about 10 feet away from Punk, maintaining that distance. The two men who had made history together, who had created some of the most memorable moments in WWE history, were face to face for the first time in over a decade with cameras off and guards down. Heyman raised the microphone, and when he spoke, his voice carried none of his usual bravado or showmanship. This was Paul Heyman speaking from the heart. "Punk," Heyman began, and even that single word carried weight. "I know the cameras are off. I know this isn't for television or social media or highlight reels. But I needed to come out here and say something to you that I should have said years ago." The crowd went silent, hanging on every word. Punk didn't respond, just stared at Heyman with an expression that was impossible to read. Heyman continued, his voice slightly shaking with emotion. "What happened between us, how it ended, that's on me. I made mistakes. I prioritized business over friendship. I let ego and money and politics come between us when I should have had your back no matter what." The crowd reacted with surprise at Heyman's admission. This wasn't the manipulative wise man they were used to seeing. This was a man confronting his past and his regrets. Punk still hadn't moved or spoken, but you could see something flickering in his eyes. Memories, perhaps. Pain, certainly. Heyman took a step closer, emboldened by Punk's lack of immediate rejection. "When you left in 2014, I told myself it was just business. That's what I do. I'm a businessman. I move on to the next client, the next opportunity, the next payday. But the truth is, I lost something when you left. I lost my best work. I lost the most creatively fulfilling partnership of my entire career. And I lost a friend." The word friend seemed to hit Punk hard. You could see him shift his weight slightly, his grip on the championship tightening. Heyman noticed and pressed forward. "I've worked with the greatest performers in this industry. Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, now Braun Breaker. All incredible talents. All world champions. But none of them were you, Punk. None of them had that fire, that authenticity, that ability to make people believe in every single word. When we were together, we created something special. Something real. And I threw it away because I was too stubborn and too proud to admit when I was wrong." Heyman's voice was cracking now, genuine emotion breaking through decades of carefully constructed persona. The crowd was eating it up, some fans actually getting emotional themselves. "Tonight I watched you defend that championship against my current client, and you know what I felt? Pride. I felt pride watching you prove once again that you're the best in the world. And that pride was mixed with regret because I should have been in your corner, not his. I should have been the one helping you prepare for that match, not strategizing against you." That seemed to be the breaking point for CM Punk. He finally spoke, his voice low but carrying throughout the silent arena thanks to the acoustics. "You should have been in my corner?" Punk repeated, and there was an edge to his voice. "Paul, you weren't just in someone else's corner tonight. You were actively working against me. You were strategizing ways to take this championship off my shoulder. You prepared Braun Breaker specifically to exploit my weaknesses, to target my injured ribs, to end my title reign. And now you want to come out here and talk about pride and regret." Heyman nodded slowly, accepting the accusation. "You're right. You're absolutely right. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to forget everything that happened between us, or everything I just did tonight. But Punk, I needed you to know that even while I was doing my job, even while I was being the advocate for Braun Breaker, there was a part of me that was rooting for you. A part of me that wanted to see you succeed because you deserve it. You've always deserved it. Punk laughed, but there was no humor in it. It was a bitter, tired sound. You don't get it, Paul. That's exactly the problem. You can't be on both sides. You can't prepare someone to destroy me and then claim you're proud when I survive. That's not how loyalty works. That's not how friendship works. And it's exactly why we fell apart in the first place. You were always hedging your bets, always keeping your options open, always making sure Paul Heyman came out on top no matter who else got hurt in the process. The accusation hung in the air, and you could see it land on Heyman like a physical blow. He looked down at his feet for a moment, and when he looked back up, there were tears in his eyes. You're right, Heyman said quietly. You're right about all of it. I am a survivor. I do hedge my bets. I do protect myself first. It's how I've lasted 40 years in this business. But Punk, that survival instinct, that self-preservation, it cost me the best partnership I ever had. It cost me your respect. And it cost me the chance to be part of the greatest championship reign in modern WWE history. Punk's expression softened slightly at that. Not forgiveness, but perhaps understanding. Paul, I don't hate you, Punk said, and the admission seemed to surprise even him. I never hated you. I was hurt. I was angry. I felt betrayed. But hate? That requires more energy than you're worth. The crowd reacted with a mixture of laughs and gasps at that line. What we had during my first title reign was special. You're right about that. We created magic together. But that was a different time, different circumstances, different versions of both of us. Heyman took another step forward, now only about 5 feet from Punk. It doesn't have to be in the past, he said urgently. We could do it again, Punk. We could create that magic again. You're the world heavyweight champion. You're at the peak of your powers. And I'm still the best advocate in the business. Together, we could. No, Punk interrupted firmly. Paul, I'm going to stop you right there before you go full Heyman on me and try to pitch some grand vision of us conquering WWE together. That's not happening. I don't need an advocate. I don't need a mouthpiece. I don't need a wise man whispering in my ear. I did that once, and while it was incredible, I learned something important. I learned that I'm better on my own. I learned that I don't need someone else to validate my championship reign or speak for me or guide my career. The rejection was gentle but definitive, and you could see it crushing Heyman. But Punk wasn't finished. What I will say is this. I appreciate you coming out here. I appreciate the apology, even if I'm not quite ready to accept it yet. And I appreciate the honesty, which I know doesn't come easy for you. Punk paused, choosing his words carefully. The door isn't completely closed, Paul. But it's not open either. It's cracked. And whether it ever opens wider depends entirely on your actions moving forward, not your words here tonight. Heyman nodded, understanding the terms being set. That's more than I deserve, he said quietly. That's more grace than I've shown you over the years. Thank you, Punk. Truly. Heyman started to turn away, to leave the ring, but then he stopped and turned back. One more thing. Everything I said about you being the best in the world? I meant it. Not as a line. Not as manipulation. As truth. You are the best in the world, and you've proven it time and time again. I'm sorry I wasn't smart enough to stand by your side when it mattered most. With that, Paul Heyman extended his hand. The gesture was simple, but loaded with meaning. It was an acknowledgement of their shared history. An acceptance of responsibility for past mistakes. And perhaps, just perhaps, an opening towards some kind of future reconciliation. The crowd held its collective breath, wondering what CM Punk would do. Would he shake Heyman's hand? Would he reject the gesture? The tension was incredible. CM Punk looked at the extended hand for a long moment. You could see him thinking, processing, weighing his options and his emotions. Then, slowly, he shifted the championship from his right shoulder to his left and extended his own hand. The two men shook hands in the center of the ring, and the crowd absolutely erupted. The ovation was thunderous, filled with genuine emotion from fans who understood the significance of what they were witnessing. This wasn't a storyline moment. This was real history, real healing, real human beings trying to navigate complicated relationships. But Punk wasn't quite done. As they shook hands, he pulled Heyman closer and said something directly into his ear that the fans couldn't hear. Whatever Punk said, Heyman's expression changed from relief to something more serious, more understanding. He nodded and said something back. The private exchange lasted only a few seconds, but it felt monumental. Then they released hands, and Heyman stepped back, nodding one more time at Punk before turning and walking toward the ropes. As Heyman prepared to leave the ring, Punk called out to him one more time. "Paul," he said, causing Heyman to stop and turn around. "You're right about one thing. What we created together was special. It was magic. And maybe, if you can prove that you've actually learned and grown from everything that happened, maybe somewhere down the line we can create something special again. But that's a long road with a lot of trust to rebuild. So for now, this is enough. This conversation. This moment. This beginning of something, even if I don't know what that something is yet." Heyman smiled, and it was the first genuine smile anyone had seen from him in months. "That's all I can ask for," he said. "And Punk? Congratulations on the successful title defense tonight. You earned every second of that victory." With that, Paul Heyman exited the ring and walked up the ramp. As he reached the stage, he turned back one final time, and Punk raised the championship in acknowledgement. The visual was powerful, these two complicated figures sharing a moment of mutual respect after years of distance and hurt. After Heyman disappeared through the curtain, CM Punk stood alone in the ring once more. He looked down at the championship, then out at the crowd who had witnessed this unexpected encounter. Punk raised the microphone one last time. "I know you all came here tonight to see me defend this championship, and I hope I delivered on that. But what just happened here after the cameras went off? That was for me. That was personal. That was something I've needed to address for a long time. Thank you for bearing witness to it, and for respecting the moment." The crowd cheered in appreciation, understanding that they had been part of something special. Punk continued, "Professional wrestling is a complicated business filled with complicated people making complicated decisions. Relationships fracture. Trust gets broken. Bridges get burned. But sometimes, if you're lucky, those bridges can start to be rebuilt. Not overnight. Not easily. But brick by brick, conversation by conversation, moment by moment. What Paul and I just shared doesn't erase the past. But maybe, just maybe, it's a first step towards some kind of future." With that, CM Punk's music hit one more time, and he climbed the turnbuckles to celebrate with the fans. He held the World Heavyweight Championship high, and the crowd chanted his name. As Punk made his way around the ring, acknowledging each section of fans, you could see something in his demeanor. Not quite peace, but perhaps the beginning of it. The weight of carrying that unresolved relationship for so many years seemed slightly lighter now, and that showed in how Punk carried himself as he exited the ring. Backstage, word of the Punk-Heyman encounter spread quickly. Other wrestlers who had stayed to watch from the monitors were talking about what they had witnessed. The consensus was universal. That was real. That wasn't scripted drama or worked emotion. That was two people with genuine history trying to navigate forward. Several wrestlers later posted on social media about being moved by what they saw, even though there was no official footage to share. The fans in attendance posted their own accounts, and soon the wrestling world was buzzing about what happened after Raw went off the air. Braun Breaker, who had been receiving medical attention backstage during the encounter, heard about it from multiple sources. His reaction was reportedly mixed. On one hand, he understood that Heyman had other relationships and history in this business. On the other hand, watching his advocate extend an olive branch to the man who had just defeated him couldn't have been easy to process. Breaker reportedly confronted Heyman about it later that night, and while the conversation remained private, sources indicated that Breaker demanded clarification about where Heyman's loyalties truly lay. Paul Heyman himself gave a brief statement to a WWE producer backstage, though not for broadcast. He simply said that he had done what he needed to do for his own peace of mind, and that his work with Braun Breaker would continue unaffected. Whether that was true remained to be seen. The complicated nature of Heyman's character meant that his motivations were always somewhat opaque, even when he seemed to be at his most honest. Only time would tell if his words to Punk were genuine or just another layer of the manipulation he's famous for. As for CM Punk, he did a brief post-show interview with a WWE producer where he was asked about the Heyman encounter. Punk kept his cards close, simply saying that some conversations need to happen privately and that he appreciated the fans respecting the moment. He made it clear that his focus remained on being the World Heavyweight Champion and defending his title against all challengers. Whether Paul Heyman would play any role in that future remained to be seen, but for now, Punk was satisfied with how the evening had concluded. The wrestling media, denied official footage but fed by fan accounts and backstage rumors, went into overdrive covering the story. Think pieces were written about the Punk-Heyman relationship and its place in WWE history. Podcasts dedicated entire episodes to analyzing what the reconciliation, if that's what it was,